about the ceramics department and just give you a better sense of what our curriculum is like, in the context of where all of this work comes from. Most of you have probably seen the documentary, so you have a pretty good idea. I think the work that's represented in here was made by juniors and seniors, and then 5 faculty. So the juniors are now seniors, and the seniors are now off doing a variety of things. Okay, so Kansas City and the area. First, I just wanted to give you all kind of an idea about Kansas City. I know that Kansas City is a good place to fly over, and it's also a good place to live and to work and to go to school. So you probably know, but being my teacher self, I'm just going to point out to you where Kansas City is, right smack there in the center of the country. And I'm from the East Coast, so it was really, really, really hard to get used to not having the ocean nearby, but it's really interesting because I have found that the wide open space is really kind of takes the place of the ocean. I'm sorry, this seems to keep flipping. Okay, this is a good view of Kansas City, the skyline, and what you see in the foreground is the Union Station, which is the second oldest extant train station in the country. And behind Union Station is a district called the Crossroads area, which is a wonderful gallery district. And there's a lot of opportunity in Kansas City to see art and also to show art. And one of the great things about Kansas City is that real estate is so reasonable that there are a lot of gallery situations that have actually been created by recent grads. And so there's a lot of opportunity for current students to show. And I know that some of you who were in Kansas City as students have that opportunity to show out in the gallery district. And KCAI now has a Crossroads gallery, and students can apply for exhibitions there, and they can have a month-long exhibition right down in the gallery district. So that's Tyra Forker's work, if any of you remember her. Probably since you all were in school, the Nelson-Atkins Museum has been added onto significantly. If you can see up here, this is the old building. It's like an old kind of Beaux Arts edifice. And Stephen Hall, the architect, designed and added these 4 what he calls lenses. And they're these absolutely beautiful buildings that gather light. The galleries are actually kind of underneath, underground. But at night, they all light up like that. And you know, that is obviously a picture that was taken by a professional photographer, not by me, but it really is that spectacular. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And it's a great place to see lots of art, especially from my point of view, historic ceramics. And so there's Chinese and Japanese, ancient American, Greek, and European collections. So it's a great resource for the ceramics department. That's just not too far away, maybe a block away from the ceramics department. Literally right next door to the ceramics department is the Kemper Museum, which has, it's a contemporary art museum, and it often shows contemporary ceramics as well. About an hour and a half from Kansas City, from the ceramics department, is the Museum, and that specializes in ceramics and painting. And so we often take field trips down there.
Excuse me, I couldn't hear. What is the name of it?
It's called the Daum Museum, D-A-U-M. It's in Sedalia, Missouri. and it specializes in ceramics and painting. So we're really lucky that we also have that resource for students, and we often take field trips to the Dahl Museum. And this is inside the Dahl Museum. And you can see, for those of you who know him, you can see George Timmock right there, and one of his pieces that's in their collection. He's well known for these big walled raku vessels, although this is his piece, his current piece, and it's made out of Hungarian porcelain, and I'll tell you more about that in a little bit. Okay, Kansas City Art Institute, KCAI. This is the Vanderslice building. It's the center of campus. It's the administration building, so it kind of gives you a sense of the architecture of the area. An old post office nearby was made into a gallery for the school. It's called the Art Space, and it has 5 exhibitions a year, which are national, sometimes internationally traveling exhibitions, and also they have an annual BFA show. And so every senior shows work in this gallery each year. And this is the ceramics building from the north and from the south. So if you saw the documentary, you saw those large heads in front of the building. It creates a very, very nice backdrop for artwork. We have kilns, lots of different kinds of kilns. We have gas kilns that you can see. This is the new kiln room that was built in maybe 2001. So we have 3 regular gas reduction oxidation kinds of kilns. We have lots of electrics, large and small. And we also have, in the old kiln room, we have a salt kiln and we have a soda kiln. So one of the great things about a program like this, and one of the really great things about ceramics, of course, is that students have to work together and collaborate and interact. And one of the fun things is salting the kiln. Also, in this, something really special that's happened in the last few years is this new renovated gallery area in the department. It's right off the lobby, and it used to be the classroom. Well, originally it was the office. And when Ken Ferguson came to teach in the department in the 60s, and then when Victor Babu and George Timmock joined him in the late 60s and the early 70s, they began collecting student work. And so there is a collection now of about 600 objects made by students, also made by faculty, visiting artists, but mostly students. And it's really, really a fantastic collection. And I think that probably all of you all are in it. And so about in 2006, we started to raise money, and we were able to renovate the room. And we have named it, we named it as a memorial for Ken Ferguson, who was the really well-known and influential chair of the department for over 30 years.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? If you want to see the screen, maybe over here, if you want to come forward. Sorry to interrupt.
No, it's fine.
You can there or here on the floor. Thank you. Sorry.
So it's really a wonderful resource for us for teaching, because when there's something that we want to explain, sometimes demonstrating or talking isn't enough, but it's really wonderful to be able to take students into the room and actually be able to show them examples. Also, there's always 2 students each year who work as work study students that are interested in gallery work in museums, and their job is to curate the shows that go in this display. So they get really good experience with that. Okay, the faculty work, just to give you an idea of what we do. This is my work. You've seen that in the documentary, that piece, I believe. This is George's work. George has gone from making really monumental works to very, very small, almost intimate and very miniature kinds of works. He's gone from working with raku to high fire porcelain and luster. So he did these when he was on his sabbatical in Hungary last fall. And Paul Donnelly is the man who is teaching right now in the third position, which Victor Babu probably held when some of you were students, I'm not sure. And he teaches the Bessel, he teaches utilitarian aspects of the curriculum. He's very interested in how work is integrated into daily life, not just how it's used, but how it's displayed. And so for his cups, he makes these items that he calls cupboards. And it's really great. His house has these kind of displays in it. He's an avid collector himself.
Cary?
Yes.
Sorry. So this is a George piece, and is Paul?
Yeah. Thank you for saying that.
The
That's
flower
Paul
brick?
Donnelly right there. Yeah. So that's a flower brick made by Paul. Right there. And then Tom Boehner, who is an alum and who has been our tech for 5 years. We've been very, very lucky to have him as our tech because he's fantastic with all kinds of materials and repairs and maintenance. And this is Tom's work. And his work often moves. It usually makes kind of wry, sardonic, humorous kinds of statements. And Misty Gamble is a Californian. She's from LA, actually, originally, although she's been in San Francisco most recently. But she was Georgia's sabbatical replacement last fall, and she was so wonderful that we asked her back this year because I'm on sabbatical for this year. So Misty makes these very, very large figurative pieces that deal with a lot of femininity and issues surrounding that. And her piece is this hand that's holding a very large rock, displaying a very large rock. So she's been a great addition. Okay, so sophomore student work. In the curriculum, well, students at KCAI, the first year is a foundation year, and they work, it's a wonderful program to work with all different kinds of materials and concepts. Students major in their sophomore year. So the sophomore year is really kind of like the foundation year in ceramics. And technique and skill is not the only thing that happens in that year, but it's a really major part of what happens in that year. We really believe in concentrating on that and making sure that students have like a full complement of skills so that they can then go on to say what they want to say with the knowledge that they need. So the sophomore year starts out with figurative work. So we cover the figure, we cover the vessel. So those are the two kind of main forms that are covered. The forming methods are everything from coiling, slab building, mold making, throwing. There's lots of different firing techniques, from salt firing and soda firing down to china painting and luster firing. So we really can't do every single thing that's ever been invented to do with clay, but we try to cover a wide variety. So I'm just going to show you some images of works made by sophomores, and the self-portrait is really important. This is George's course that he's taught for many years, and he also introduces nicron wire, which is the kind of wire that's that makes the elements in electric kilns. And he introduces that as a linear element. So students sometimes get awfully obsessed with that nichrome wire. And you know, he's really pushes anatomical correctness. And a lot of students come in and feel like might feel like that's a really difficult thing to do, and it's really amazing how much every student learns and how much those portraits really look like a student. And this is Morgan Ringer, and these heads find their pieces find their ways, as you know, into different lives after they leave the school. And there's a man who purchased lots of these heads and put them high up on this building, about on the 3rd floor. And so this is Morgan Ringer as Chia Pet. I don't know if Morgan's ever seen that picture of himself. This is a good view of the studio. This is the sophomores at work in the studio. So this is the spring. What I was just showing you was the fall, and what we're seeing now is the spring. So in the spring, students learn how to throw. A lot of students come in and say, well, I know how to throw. So the throwing instructor works with them at their level and pushes them. And then there's students who really don't know how to throw at all, and they start from the beginning.
Is this Eva?
That is Eva. That's the only good picture of somebody throwing from the side, kind of looking up, that I've ever really been able to get. So most of these slides are very current, but that's an oldie but goodie. So the forms are primarily cylindrical with handles, very basic kinds of throwing, and thinking about utility. In addition, so at the same time, students are also learning about plaster and mold making and slip casting. And so this is Gabe Reed. You can see the molds that he has in the back. And the great thing about slip casting is, you can make a variety of things, and then you can make a lot of elements that are the same. And then it's almost like printmaking. You can treat each one differently in terms of its form and its surface. So in each spring, George presents one form. And so what I'm showing you now is a variety of teapots. So these are all teapots, teapot variations that are made by students in the sophomore year. So it goes from, the fairly recognizable teapot form to maybe something that's a little bit less. So in the sophomore year, students also are taking a 3-credit-hour course each semester on clean glaze formulation. So that's happening as they're working in studio. So it's a very, very intensive kind of introduction to technique and skill. And so students learn this knowledge through instruction, through solid instruction, but they also learn it through practice and through time. And one thing that we really engender in the department is a strong work ethic. Classes are 12 hours a week. We expect students to be there, much more frequently than that outside of class.
Like 90 hours.
And something that is really important too, I think, in helping students develop is that every student has their own workspace, and so they're not having to clean up and put things away. They can come in, they can work, and they get to know their neighbors really well, and there's a lot of really important things that happen, not just from faculty to student, but from student to student within that whole kind of atmosphere. And so you can see how Amy has put up a lot of important kind of resource material. So this just kind of gives you a sense of students at work. So the question is, how do we help students grow and develop beyond technique? It's like, can you really teach art, I guess is the question there. And that's something that I think about a lot, but one of the things that's very, very important in developing artists is for students to learn how to challenge themselves and take risks in their work. And so one of the important ways that we help that happen is by setting up critiques. And we have all different kinds of critiques. We have one-on-one, which you saw in the documentary. Then we have group critiques where students are much more involved in formally critiquing each other. We sometimes invite, actually every year we have, every semester we have at least one visiting artist who comes in and does individual critiques. So, and we also invite students and faculty from outside the department to come in. So students get responses from painters or printmakers. And then twice a semester, we have critiques. We have mid-semester and final critiques, so it's the student and then all three faculty. And those are about 20 to 30 minutes per student. And we also believe that for students to learn to speak about their work, like speaking is a different kind of language, it's a different way of understanding and expressing what you do. And so that's encouraged. And we feel it's very, very important in helping students grow. Okay, so I'm going to show you some upper level student work. As students go into their junior year, their junior and senior year, they select if they want to concentrate on the vessel or if they want to concentrate on making sculpture. And sometimes those are not mutually exclusive kinds of activities, but at least they begin with that kind of concentration. And so I'm going to just show you a variety of upper level student work from these vessels, a variety of kinds of vessels that you'll see. And there's a lot, but the bottle has become really a form of real interest. And you'll see bottles here by Ashley Morrison, and by Matthew Jorgensen in that corner, and by Eric Walliver in that corner. There have been some really excellent bottles in the last few years. You know, ceramics is kind of a combination of sculpture and painting, so watching students draw and treat a form, a plastic form, can really be exciting. So, students who work with sculpture in the beginning start out working with tile and pieces for the wall. So these are some examples of those. Printmaking techniques have become of great interest in the last few years, and this is an example of a very simple printmaking technique that a student developed on a very, very, very thin layer of porcelain. So the light, if it feels like it's coming through that sheet, that white sheet, it is. That's what's happening. And sculpturally, animals have become a real interesting subject matter for a lot of people, a lot of artists recently, and you'll see a lot of animals in here. Mainly the panda puppy sculpture by Calder Kamen is a good example here, and then the bird, the hanging bird by Julie Mallon. Sometimes objects that students make take on a different life and become props for things like fashion shows. And this is actually the gun and the outfit are by Ari Fish, who is our only student that has gone on to be on Project Runway. And I don't know if you all saw her. She was the first person who got the boot, but she did get on, so that was pretty impressive. Sometimes photography is a really useful tool, taking pieces out of the studio and recontextualizing them in a photograph. And I asked students, we just started this project last year, and it's every senior in the fall has to do something that in some way takes their work out of the context of the studio and has to be documented and presented. And this is a student who made this piece here on the wall next to Rosie. And she's working a lot with disease and death. And so she took her pieces into a hospital and photographed them. Okay, so what else does the program offer to help prepare students for careers in the arts? Because, that's really important to us, that it doesn't stop. And, it's great to see students here today do I know are continuing and really involved and committed. So professional practice is like the least popular class in, in the curriculum, but it's the class that I often hear about later as having been helpful. So in professional practice, students research and learn a lot about postgraduate opportunities, like graduate school, like residencies, like jobs. And then they also learn how to prepare materials for presentation for those jobs or graduate school applications, etc. And so the artist statement and the resume are two important tools. And giving a lecture, just like I'm doing now. And so it's really nice that we have this new classroom because it gives a really nice space for students to present a chronology of the development of their work in slide form. And this is Timo giving his presentation. He's the guy that was in the documentary Pumping All the Balloons. Yeah. So, and he's at UCLA now, so he should. And his piece is right there next to the camera. So he's represented too. Internships are another really important kind of professional practice. Students are required to take at least one internship in the ceramics department, and what I've found is they can take up to 4. That's like the maximum limit, and they're doing that. Internships are really, really exciting. And so it can be at a museum, a gallery, an artist studio. There's a variety of things that students do, but these are all businesses, logos from businesses in Kansas City that students have worked for in the last few years. So Easy Ceramic Decals is Andy Brayman. I don't know if you've ever heard of Andy Brayman, but he's got one of those photocopy machines that makes colored decals. Lester Bunny is Rain Harris's. Rain Harris has a really, really well-developed career, but she makes jewelry. That's how she makes her living, bread and butter. Folded Pigs is repurposed restaurant wear. Red Star Studios is a wonderful place that has a gallery and studios, and students have worked in both. Do we have a Macau Special Project Awards? You were there. You had.
No,
When you were
I didn't
there,
apply for one.
you didn't apply for
Yeah.
one, but when you were there, we had them. We have an alum who has given the department this very special treat, which is he gives $2,000 a year to the department, and it's for students to apply. Like it mimics a granting situation. So students have to apply with a resume, a written proposal, and slides that demonstrate what they would like to use the money for. And it can be to buy materials or it can be to travel for research. And so it's just a great opportunity for students to develop their work and to get professional experience. And it's often extracurricular from ceramics, which is fine with us. It's often the seniors that get these awards. This is Terry Frame, who was actually, she was projecting images from her family, from ancestral pictures from her family onto her naked body, and making these wonderful, very moving photographs. Scott Rosenberg applied to buy taxidermy forms to make these amazing and insane installations. A few years ago, before Rhino was available at school, Joe Tam wanted to learn Rhino, which is a dimensional imaging program. And so he applied to get the program, to buy the software, and it helped him. It was another way for him to learn how to sketch and develop his ideas. So here's the three-dimensional image, or the computer image from the digital imaging program, and then there's the actual work.
It's still hand-formed, right?
Yeah, you can also hook it into a rapid prototype or a CNC, and it
Right.
will tell.
Do it out of phone or
And-
something.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't have that machine, so he was just learning the program and using it as a sketching tool. And he also designed the senior exhibition using it. And Tiff Hawken designed and created billboards, and Robert Wetherington bought medical equipment, lab equipment to work with in combination with the ceramics. And then showing also is very important as a professional practice. And so there's departmental exhibitions. This, if you can imagine, every semester, the studio that you saw pictures of, and in the documentary that's completely full of work and personal items, and I think your refrigerator is still there, you know, I mean, everything gets completely moved out and redone and turned into an exhibition space. So we have an exhibition at the end of every semester. So these are examples. And that's another one of the big heads from that semester that was so successful with the big heads. And all that work done at the end is Julie's work, the bird. And then if you saw the documentary, there was a woman making very large vessels, and that's one of her pots back there. And then the BFA exhibitions is when each senior has one piece in the art space at the end, right before graduation. And so these are examples of those shows. And this is the bowl. This is the famous bowl that was in the documentary by Julie Mallon. And so that's the way it looked on display. And what you don't see there is that when you came into the gallery, there's a room on the other side of this wall. And as you came in, you saw just a bullhead that looked like a trophy. It's like, oh, that's nice, you know. And then you walk around and you see this. And if you stand in between the very successful piece. So the department also offers elective courses and we have a study abroad in Hungary. Tom Boehner has been doing a dimensional mosaics course. This is my truck that was transformed by mosaics that were created and designed and applied and grouted onto my truck. My truck is now kind of like the space shuttle, you know, tiles flying off. And George has started a kiln-formed glass course. So it's not part of the major, it's an elective, but some really interesting things have come out. Very experimental things that you wouldn't really expect maybe out of kiln-formed glass. You know, there's very traditional and other things as well. We began this course at the International Ceramics Center in Kecskemét, Hungary, 5 years ago. I had the great experience of residency there. It seemed like the perfect place. I started the perfect place for a study abroad program, and George and I started it, and he loves it. He goes back every year. So this is the studio. It's a place where students can live and work. So it's a good study abroad because you're not moving every 3 nights to a different city in a different hotel. You stay here, you work, you live, you get to know the town, and then take field trips out. So industrial ceramics, of course, is the main thing that's taught in Hungary. I mean, the first thing that people learn to do here is either coil hot or throw on the wheel, but there the first thing they learn how to do is make a mold. And so this is Sándor Dobányi, who is, you know, a well-known artist in Hungary. And so artists from Hungary, Hungarian artists come in and give these wonderful presentations and share their knowledge. We do not have a wood kiln at Kansas City Art Institute, but they do there. So this is for students, a great opportunity for students to wood fire. But Hungary, I mean, I don't know if any of you have been to Hungary, but when I first went to Hungary, it never occurred to me that it might be a really fantastic place for ceramics, but it really is. And one of the greatest things is the architectural ceramics, and I think that you might be able to see just a little bit of relationship between that and my piece right there. This is the Museum of Applied Arts in Budapest. And Herend is a wonderful porcelain manufactory that I think it's been in business for maybe 250 years. And has anybody here done any Herend? It's beautiful china, absolutely beautiful. And so we visit Herend and we see how they have these amazing techniques. This is one of their piercing techniques that I'm showing you here. But the great thing about the studio where we work is that the director has a relationship with the owner of Herend, and so they send Herend slip and clay to the studio, and so students get to use that. And it's very white. It fires like code 14, and it's completely translucent if it's done right. So this is an example of what it can do. And so this is student work. And students also do all sorts of things when they're in Hungary, but this is an example of something that's very specialized that, I mean, we could all sit down and figure out how to make a clay that does this, but it's really great to have it shipped in these big barrels, and it's just really available, and it's really, really beautiful material.
So, Cary, this one here is that?
And so
if
that's-
you shone a light, it would like be like.
No, because it's not thin enough.
Okay.
So George uses it for its whiteness and for its permanence. I mean, it is very, very durable. These pieces were made in Hungary right here. I don't know if this is, it's slightly translucent. It has to be really thin. And then these cups behind you were made in Hungary. That's Herend porcelain as well. So it's really great to be able to have this European kind of connection. And the center there is actually a residency center for artists, for international artists. So students not only get to know these great materials and techniques, but they meet artists from Australia and England and Asia. So it's really a great experience. Well, Nobu is here. Nobu graduated in 1999. Did you graduate in 99? Yeah. And so, it's really great to see Nobu. He went to graduate school, had a teaching job at Creighton University in the Midwest, and then got to come up to LA, and you're at UC Fullerton. Cal State Fullerton. Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, I got a good job too at UCLA.
You're moving to UCLA?
Well, I got a second job.
Okay, so you also teach at UCLA, which means that Nobu is now teaching JC Ornelas, who's one of his graduate students. So when did you graduate?
06.
06. So, it's really nice to see that kind of thing. And you're also maybe teaching Timo, who's a graduate student at UCLA now. So students do all sorts of things. And Karen Keiss is a designer of lots of different kinds of things. Anyway, Karen, public art for one. And Peter Keenan, who graduated with me, I'm an alum of the school. Peter is a
Don't hold it against me, I produce TV commercials.
well, but I think that it kind of, what's great about that is that we're training students to be artists first and foremost. We want, our students to really know ceramics very well. But we hope that the information is applicable to a lot of different kinds of fields in the arts. And so, I think it's really
Perfect
fantastic.
example.
You are,
Yeah.
absolutely. And actually, I remember your videos when we were students. So I'm just going to show you some highlights of alumni from people who've been out in the field for quite some time. Kurt Weiser, I'm sure you're all familiar with his wonderful China painted pieces, and he's a professor, as is Akio Takamori. Kurt's at Arizona State. Akio is teaching at University of Washington, Seattle. Sarah Yeager, who was in, what was Sarah in? Community? Was Sarah in Community?
Yes, she was in the first series.
So she's a self-supporting studio potter in Helena, Montana. And Richard Knockin also lives in Helena, Montana, and is a gallery artist, making a living doing that. Tia Pulitzer is here in LA, and her husband Nathan Mabry, and they're both pretty much. I know that Nathan's full-time artist, and you're saying she's teaching somewhere?
Yeah. She's full-time artist.
Full-time artist. Nobu, an example of Nobu's work, which I would love to see. What's the material that these are made out of?
It's translucent
Yeah. Justin Stewart is living in New York City and is very involved in making huge installations. This one is actually kind of scaled back for the purpose of this commission that he did. But he's actually working with metal and fleece. Those are his materials now, because you see, Cary and I make such big stuff, I can't just carry all this heavy ceramics around. So, he problem solved that, because his desires are not practical for ceramics. So Brian Kelly is on the East Coast in Baltimore. No, he's in Philadelphia at the Clay Studio. This is an image of an installation he did, which involves a lot of paper mache. And he is working with Andy Byers, who is the costume designer for Isabella Rossellini's Green Porno. And has anybody seen Green Porno? It's these really fantastic little clips on the Sundance website, and Isabella Rossellini is showing us, hey guys, here's the current contention. So, and these are all made of paper. And then this is the last slide, the last image, and this is Meredith Host. And after going to graduate school, she moved back to Kansas City. She loved Kansas City, and she is an interesting artist, because she kind of represents the new way of marketing. Almost 100% of her work is marketed through the internet. And one of her lines is this repurposed restaurant wear, which she purchases and decals and resells. And she has lots of our students as interns. You're all welcome to come visit us in Kansas City. We'd love to show you around. And we have a departmental blog. That's the website, www.kcaiceramics.wordpress.com. And we try to keep it updated with all the things that are happening in the department, including this event. I think this is the most recent post.
So can I ask, are they in this show?
Yes, absolutely. This is Calder Kamen.
Oh,
who
the
made
panda puppy.
the panda puppies. Calder graduated last semester, and she has a job with benefits and a studio at Red Star Studios. And Ryan Fletcher, who made this piece right here. And Ryan distinguished himself because he decided he wanted to experience working with Merrick Sekula, who some of you may know. He's a very, very well-known international ceramic artist. So he emailed Merrick and asked him if he could come work with him for 3 months, or for 3 weeks last summer, and Merrick said, okay. So Ryan had a really great experience in Poland, Oh,
Yeah, that's it.
so, anyway, you guys are late, just like, you know, what, for 8 o'clock class or whatever. Just
It's
kidding.
my fault, I'm sorry.
Anyway, it's great to have you all here.
And Cary, this
So-
is Yumi Kiyoshi, who also graduated from Kansas.
Oh, wow, hi,
Hi,
nice to meet you.
nice to meet you.
And now teaches at Santa Monica College?
Yes.
Yeah, great.
That's right.
Good.
And Rose.
Did you make those big platters?
Oh,
Did you make big platters?
yes.
With what, painting?
Yeah, grades and carving.
Yeah, I've seen those images. Very good. It's good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
So thanks, everybody.
Like number one, you prepare the students thoroughly with the techniques, with the technical. But also I've noticed, because I know so many of the students who've graduated, they've either shown here or worked here. It seems as if your students continue in the arts at a greater percentage than other schools. And I don't know if you can speak to that, if you just think they're well prepared and able to take their knowledge and apply it in different ways, or
Well, that's really
More
what
passionate.
I hope. I mean, I do think that students in the department really learn how to work really, really hard. And, you know, I was talking to my friend Julia, who's a jeweler, and has her own business, and that's just so much what it's about. It's just really that willingness, you know, to just to give it your all, you know, to really sort of be completely seduced by the work and to really, you know, get there. You know, because often it's pleasurable and sometimes you're not really in the mood, but you just, you know, go and you know, the mood strikes you anyway. So, I mean, I think that's part of it, and I think there's a really important community in the department. I think, you know, Calder's class was just like a really great example and Ryan's a senior now. They're just two really excellent classes with students that really support each other and really work together and stay in touch. You know, I think there's a community that continues, because since it's a 3-year program, when you're sophomore, you know, it's the juniors and seniors, and then by the time you're a senior, you know the juniors and the sophomores, so you know, like 6 or 8 years of people. It's so important. And I mean, Peter, it was really great. We kind of reconnected a couple of months ago, but we have this, you know, strong bond from 30 years ago. So.
I think the fact that it's a 4-year school, I don't know, nobody ever mentions that, but you know, you're not being taught by TAs. You have actual professors showing up, and you weren't taught, you know, it's not watered down.
Yeah, we don't have a graduate program, so it's just undergrad, and so there is.
It's huge.
Yeah, I think that's a really important aspect of it. I think we just, you know, we have really great students who, and that's a big part of it.
I'd also like to say you have really great teachers, because when we visited, we went for a screening of the series, and afterwards, we went to dinner with George Timmock, and we left dinner at about 10:30, and he went back to the school.
Yeah.
He was going back to the school to work with the students. I mean, it was
Wow.
10:30 at night. It was
I don't do that.
Good.
Cary, would you say that as many students are interested in learning functional work today as much as sculptural? I mean, is there a definite division that you notice of students coming in one way or the other?
Well, it kind of ebbs and flows. Right now, there's a lot of interest in function, and really, I would say design. You know, Ryan's really interested, not just in hand-making objects for use, but in the design aspect of industry. And they're in the field, there's a lot of interest in that. People having, you know, small factory kind of situations, like small manufacturers, lending, hard crafted design. But there's always a thread of people who are very interested in use. And he's brought a lot of new, like great new energy, and so there's seems to be like a really great time for it.
And he's more functional?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.